Hello, friends. We're here on our Friday Q&A. Oh, so nice to see everybody. And of course, Friday Q&As are now devoted to our skillful living practice and teachings, which encompass all of our Buddhist path as well as our living path, our exercise and all that good stuff. I'll put up a screenshot of that a little bit later. I thought today a wonderful topic would be to talk about mental discipline, which is related to the first of our, I might as well put it up right now. And I almost forgot to say our prayers, so we're going to do those in a second. But here's our holistic spiritual lifestyle. And right up here at the top, we have developed the mind. So that's the one we're going to talk about today with mental discipline. But like many of our topics, they can incorporate more than one. So, let alone develop the mind, mental discipline is equally a practice. Number two, right? What else do we have here? Mental discipline. You can embody beauty. Number six, a bit more. Explore a bit more when you're aware of, when you're controlling your mind, you're aware of it. Working smarter over there, which looks like number seven or something. Working smarter takes mental discipline, right? So that's what we're going to talk about today. But again, before we do that, let's get into a pretty prayer. Why is it I always forget my prayers? The Dalai Lama once said at a teaching, and I was guilty of this. We're all sitting there, and he says we're having like a snack or tea or something, and he all of a sudden he says, I've noticed that the fat people always forget to say their prayers when before they eat. And I was totally guilty of it. I wasn't saying my prayers. All we were doing fixating on that food. And he just laughed and laughed, and oh, it was funny. Today, I feel fortunate to sit as a member of this kind community in the safety and security of like minded friends, sharing this present moment with others dedicated to the cultivation of goodness. Today, I'm grateful for the direction and support that this community provides, a community worthy of my time and commitment, a community where my efforts have meaning, purpose, and are appreciated. Today, I'm thankful for this community of awakening, a place to gain the knowledge and skills to improve my life, a family, a home, and a sanctuary for all of us seeking refuge from the storm. As conscientious practitioners, we must recognize our responsibility to the world, to strive to live skillfully while helping others to do the same. And Tanella's here. To strive to live in balance and harmony with nature and others, to strive to gain mastery over our minds and embody our true benevolent nature, to expand our hearts and minds, transcending our shared human limitations, to not intentionally harm sentient life or our planet, to maturely accept and embrace the reality of our situation while striving to improve it. Oh, hello, Miss Antonella. We're so happy you joined us. We were just talking about embodying beauty, and you show up. Wow, that's something. We needed a beautiful face on the screen. And Ms. Antonella, we're talking about mental discipline today. I wrote a short paper on it as part of our curriculum. I posted it online for anybody wishing to see it. And on this video, I'll post it below. It's only a page long, so all my lazy friends can participate once in a while. Once in a while, we do a class for my lazy friends, not you guys, my really lazy friends who won't even come do a Q&A. I got a bunch of them. So, anyways, let's start with this idea. I write all these practices for myself. I think people find this funny. Like, I tell them you should do this practice, and they say, "Well, it was beneficial." I said, "Yeah, I wrote it for me." I said, at a certain point, I really needed to hear this, so I write these practices for me. Anyways, whenever I heard the word mental discipline, it didn't sound like a lot of fun. The topic itself. Oh yeah, mental discipline. Where everybody nods. Oh, that's a good one. But it doesn't sound like spontaneous and fun, like the stuff we really want. We don't want to have to concentrate. We want to be loose and happy and have some fun. So I think when you first say it, it doesn't really appeal to the ear very much. But the paper's all about that. It's trying to show you that when we're talking about mental discipline in this context, we're talking about freedom. We're talking about liberation, and we're talking about authentic happiness. And the Buddha had a simple quote. It was that a disciplined mind brings happiness. And the fact is, it's very true. So, normally, again, we think we're happy when we're just letting go of our our faculties, and we're spontaneous and fun, like when we're playing some football or when we're surfing or something. um, and guess what, at that time we really are, right? uh, One thing about Buddhism is people get the idea that Buddhism doesn't appreciate pleasure, and nothing could be further than the truth. The Buddha himself in the scriptures doesn't deny that pleasures are there. He doesn't deny that alcohol brings people pleasure, that sexuality is pleasurable, that eating food is pleasurable. The idea is he's just rational about it, and he understands the other side to it. The greatest example is alcohol is a lot of fun, but then you have to wake up the next day with a hangover, right? A lot of our pleasures have repercussions. Look at me, from enjoying food so much, I turned into a big llama, right? There's repercussions. But what the Buddha's talking about is that, and Pema's here, Miss Karen. Very nice. So, very nice. Okay. Um, but what the Buddha is talking about is he's not denying the pleasure of these things. He's denying that they have any lasting pleasure, right? In one of my books, I'm not sure which one it was. Maybe it was Tibetan Buddhist Essentials. I have a piece there on renunciation. It's a story of a guy, an alcoholic, sitting at the bar with a drink in front of him. He knows that if he drinks the drink, he'll feel better. It'll bring him some happiness. But at the same time, he knows alcohol is destroying his life. It's destroying his relationships with his family, his job. It's ruining his life, right? So, with the wisdom of that, he decides to push the drink away and renounce alcohol, stepping away from alcohol. He is not denying the pleasure that alcohol brings. He's using wisdom to show that real lasting happiness of a healthy body, a healthy family, a good job, real happiness is different, and the alcohol's getting in the way of that. The Tibetans have a saying. They say, we trade candy for gold. Candy is lovely. It's a little piece of chocolate. How wonderful. But then the pleasure disappears pretty quick, right? But the idea that if you could trade it for gold, gold is lasting and it can benefit you your whole life. So this is the idea of pleasure in Buddhism. We're not denying pleasure. We're just trading small pleasures for greater pleasures that last. And the idea of nirvana, that's the greatest pleasure of all. And maybe some of you in your meditations with this group, you've started to get into the levels of rapture and bliss. And man, that's a whole lot better than candy, don't you think? Oh man, some of my meditations, I'll take those any day over a piece of candy. They're way more exciting and they last, right? They last a long time. They're there anytime I want to engage with them. So that's kind of the idea here when we're talking about mental discipline, is that yes, these simple pleasures are easy to come by and they don't take any kind of thought or any kind of work, but you get what you pay for. You get what you work for. Simple pleasures don't last, and oftentimes they bring suffering, like eating a lot of candy and getting cavities and toothaches, or getting to be a 300-pound llama, which I'm not, by the way. I'm not that big. Uh, so that's the idea, where real, unique, or authentic happiness has a different characteristic. They're lasting. They don't lead to suffering. So and we require some mental discipline and some effort to learn how to acquire them. Once we acquire them, they take very little effort. So again, we're talking about mental discipline today. So the Buddhist path begins with the cultivation of ethics and a disciplined mind. We talk about in Buddhism that it's represented by a triangle. At the bottom of the triangle is ethics, and on one side we have wisdom, the other one is method, and that's the holistic practice aspect of Buddhism, those three things. But everything is built on ethics. And of course, ethics are about a disciplined mind, right? Ethics are about having logical and rational views on how to behave and how to hold ourselves, right? And that takes discipline, that takes a disciplined mind. This includes gaining control over our views, intentions, emotions, our thoughts, our choices, our speech, and our actions. No progress begins and no attainments are gained without mental and emotional discipline. It just doesn't happen. The Buddha was right on the mark when he talked about this. This is the starting point. The cultivation of mental discipline, which leads to all positive qualities, is the true path. And to be inseparable from that discipline, the true goal. I wanted to read that because I didn't think I could say it any better. And of course, the opposite, the lack of mental discipline, is like living in a clouded reality where we are oblivious to the importance of our choices and actions. This is a careless, numb, and often childlike state of mind where we simply coast through life, being carried about by our impulses and desires, a delusional state similar to being drugged, in which we remain detached from reality and our true potential. I think that this is so true. And of course, uh, why is mental discipline so important? It's because our reality is almost entirely a creation of the mind. We've talked about this numerous times. What we mean by that is internally, of course, all our conceptual world, all our ideas and our thoughts and our beliefs are all created by the mind. But even our external world is merely an interpretation. So we only see the world through human eyes. We only see an interpretation of the world through human eyes. We only smell the world through a human nose, hear it from human ears. It's always an interpretation. We're never quite sure if what we're experiencing is accurate. But there is a chance that human beings are one of the few beings that really see things accurately, but we don't know. Everything you take in from all of your senses is an interpretation of the world. So again, our mind, uh, we take this electrical feedback from our senses, and our mind converts it into knowledge and information, and then we interpret it and process it. And there's really cool science about some of this. Especially, I think the eye is probably the most exciting thing to see documentaries on. And some of the things about how the eye functions and how it works are cool. Some of the latest ones are talking about things like that the eyes actually see everything backwards, and the brain switches it about. I saw another documentary that the eyes only see in 2D. I don't know. It seemed like a pretty legit documentary, but I won't bet my reputation on it. But they talked about the eyes see 2D. The mind itself fills in shadow to produce 3D in the mind. So that's kind of a newer thought. Nevertheless, you're getting the idea of it, that our reality probably is like 95% mental. Even though we feel things, even though it's still, those are electrical impulses from our touch, from our tactile sensations that are going to the mind and being processed and being interpreted. So you could imagine, if we gain control over the mind, uh, what abilities we would have, right? Um, Also, the idea that the cultivation of mental discipline is the cultivation of free will. And I make that assertion because of the fact that we're beings of habit. We've talked about this before, that primarily most people run completely on autopilot, just following habits that they've had for a long time. It's rare when a truly free thought arises or any kind of free choice. I think when we entered the spiritual path and we learn how to be self aware, this is the beginning of free will. And I think as we attempt to awaken and become enlightened beings, what we're really attempting to do is to become free, to free our wills and to behave and act in a way that we're free of habits, that everything that we choose, everything that we do, or primarily most of the things are fresh, and they're chosen for current knowledge, not past knowledge. And so when we're not mentally disciplined and we're working on autopilot, we're doing everything by habit. There's no free will there, and it's an easy way to just let life pass you by. We always talk about awakening is from awakening from habitual mundane existence, and I often am asked, what do you mean by that? Habitual mundane existence. So what it means is, like so many people, they in the morning they wake up, they go to work, drink a giant pot of coffee, they do their job in the same way they've always done it, they have their lunch, they come home, have a beer, watch their favorite television show, fight with the wife and kids, go to sleep and do it all over again. This is mundane living, that they're not really aware that they're alive. They don't see the beauty around them, they don't see the miracle of their existence, they don't see their own true value of what it is to be born a human being in this universe. And so we call this habitual and mundane. And again, the sad thing is that people like this oftentimes will live their lives like this, and at some point, when they're older, when they get in their 50s or 60s, they just realize all of my life has passed me by, that for 40 or 50 years all I've been doing was working for a pension, dreaming that one day I'll be able to quit my job and retire on a beach and drink fruity drinks out of with an umbrella sticking out of the top. But then you get to that point and you take too much medication, you can't go on to the island, they don't have your prescriptions. So you kind of get the idea here. And so this is how mental discipline equates freedom and liberation. Um, Mental discipline is required to gain mental and emotional stability. And here I've talked about this before. When you gain real mental and emotional stability, it is quite an experience. When you wake up in the morning and all day long you feel almost the same until you go to bed, what a wonderful experience, that day to day your mind is just not dragging you all around, that for no reason negative thoughts and embarrassing shameful thoughts from your past occur. They pop up for absolutely no reason, that this thinking mind just keeps regurgitating drama and gossip, and we've all been there. We know what this is. This is the undisciplined mind. The undisciplined mind is just a cesspool, and guess what? The good news is when you learn to discipline it, you can have a choice. That's freedom. That's awakening. When that little funny thought comes up about, somebody pushing you down on the playground when you were in fourth grade, and I look in my mind and I say, no, I'm not going to go there. And I'm able to do that. I'm able to just set that aside and not have it affect my emotions. This is an absolutely wonderful thing. I recommend it highly to all of my friends out there. And so the next thing I'd like to talk about is how to cultivate a mental discipline. So we cultivate mental discipline in many ways. We're all doing it every day. When you have kids, when you're at school, when you at a job, we all it all of these things require mental discipline. So this isn't foreign to us. We all know what it is. We all know we're talking about gaining focus, gaining awareness, being able to, like in meditation, we learn how to hold our mind on an object. That kind of focus, that's what we're talking about. And just about all the Buddhist practices, in one way or another, really lead to mental discipline. The first one is study. When you understand how the mind works, how the emotions work, how habits work, how you process things, it's a lot easier to gain some control over that. You know, when you see anger rising and you go, ah, I see, and that I know exactly why it's coming up and I know what to do about it. That's mental discipline, right? That control. So study is a great way to begin, right? But then other things like meditation and mindfulness and all these things are all ways to do it, right? Uh, to cultivate, oh, where am I? I'm sorry, I'm trying to look on my sheet here. Yeah, meditation, mindfulness, contemplation, noting. So you note emotions and things that come up and you start to understand them all. Holding vows is another one. We just took refuge vows last week. Holding vows is of course an amazing way of developing mental discipline. As a monk, I have 253 vows, just my monk vows. Then I have 64 bodhisattva vows and a handful of tantric vows. I think altogether I hold like 308 vows a day, which sounds daunting, but so many of them are things your mom would teach you, like act dignified and don't make noises when you eat. So it's easier than you think. There's probably 30, 40 you really have to keep your mind on. But those force me to have great mental discipline, to really watch my behavior. um, and our topic last week, we were talking about engaging in beauty, and we were talking about the most important of the beauties was these internal beauties, this beautiful speech, beautiful thought, beautiful action. This is like a shortcut to just about all the Buddhist practices. When we're talking about being mentally disciplined, we're talking about learning how to speak beautifully, being aware and doing it right, learning how to have beautiful thoughts in your mind. Imagine if you could choose the thoughts in your mind all day long. And when I mean beautiful, I don't mean flowers and stuff. I mean like the thought of friendship, of caring for others, these wholesome, beautiful thoughts. Imagine your whole mind all day long is filled with these lovely thoughts. And then, of course, they would all lead to beautiful action. So, beauty is a great way. This form of beauty that we engage in is a great way to work on mental discipline. Um, and then even exercise is a great mental discipline, as you all know. When you're doing something you just don't want to be, you're sweating, you're aching, you don't want to be doing it, but you do it anyways because you're persevering and you're going at it and you're trying to get some good results. Of course, that's mental discipline too. The big takeaway is we need to look at mental discipline as liberation. That's the vehicle for liberation. That's the vehicle for freedom. Because when we talk about samsara and nirvana, we're talking about mental states. Samsara is a mental state of suffering. Why? Samsara is a state of mental undiscipline. Samsara is a mind that's out of control, that's undisciplined, that's untrained, that just does whatever it wants to, and it just drags us along with it, right? Whatever thoughts pop in the mind, we're stuck with. We didn't ask we didn't ask for that embarrassing thought to come up when we're doing something interesting. It just does, and we're stuck with it. So samsara is an untrained mind. That's simply right. And what is nirvana? A trained mind. In all of our Buddhist practices, especially when you're a monk, in scriptures they always refer to it as training. We're training the mind. We don't talk about it much in our curriculum. We talk about becoming happy and everything else, but the way we do that is mental training. All of Buddhism is mental training. We're learning to get some control over the mind and how to liberate our own minds. That's what we're doing. So please don't make mental discipline sound kind of heavy and not a lot of fun. it's really needed here, and that's our path to the promised land, folks. That's our path to liberation. With that said, I'd like to put something on the screen. And oh yes, Alberta had to go. What do I got here? I got something for you guys. Oh, I need better glasses, I think. Okay. So at the end of all of my pieces that I write, all my text, I always have an aspiration or affirmation because I like writing them. But also, the idea is that remember that I write these for myself. All of these practices I did for myself. I wrote this aspiration because I was in dire need of it. I was practicing, I saw a big problem in my life. And guess what? I wrote a prayer so I could say the prayer every single morning to remind myself, right? And then I just put them together and I hope other people can benefit. And so instead of having to read the whole article again every morning, I give this nice little prayer that encapsulates it all. I'd love to read it with you guys. So, Ode to Mental Discipline. I will no longer allow my emotions to dictate my state of mind. I will no longer allow my desires and impulses to covertly shape my life. I will no longer allow my habits to blindly direct my life's course. I will no longer allow my fears to rob me of opportunity and happiness. I will no longer allow others to manipulate my emotions and self worth. I will be strong, energetic, and confident. I will cultivate clarity and remain truthful with myself. I will develop diligence and an unwavering resolve for improvement. I will make conscious, mature choices and hold myself to those choices. I will become wholly responsible and in full control of my life from this day forward. So, in that, each line was something I was battling. The first one, I will no longer allow my emotions to dictate my state of mind. That became so clear to me one day that, whatever little thing comes up, whatever little thing someone said, or somebody rolled their eyes at me, or, isn't it something? We go out to have a beautiful day. People will do the littlest gesture or say something that you read into, and all of a sudden it hijacks your whole day, right? So that was that first line. The second one, I will no longer allow my desires and impulses to covertly, secretly shape my life. I found this to be true, that oftentimes I wasn't aware of how much my desires and impulses were behind the things I did secretly and shaping my life. Next line, I will no longer allow my habits to blindly direct my life's course. And of course, that means I will no longer live in mundane existence. I'm going to be aware. I will no longer allow my fears to rob me of opportunity and happiness. This continues to happen if as I work on these and I find that I think I'm free of them, what happens is you just find subtler and subtler levels of them, right? But like sometimes in teaching where I'll get nervous and this little thought in the back of my head goes, oh, maybe I don't like this. Maybe I want to do something else. And it's that fear, that's lack of confidence, and then it gets in the way and robs you of wonderful opportunities, right? For so many people, the reason they're not happy is because they're just covered in fear and anxiety. It's that simple, right? They buy into all their fears. I will no longer allow others to manipulate my emotions and self-worth. Can I get an amen on that one? Amen. Yeah, man, isn't that's a heavy one, isn't it? That's a huge one. I would no longer allow others to manipulate my emotions and self-worth. Man, that's a big one. We just that's the most important, to have that confidence to stand alone. And in some ways just not care, right? In some ways you care about the person, but you don't care about the garbage coming out of their mouth. The next one, I will be strong, energetic, and confident. So the first ones are what I'm not going to do anymore. And then the next ones are quite aspirational. I will be strong, energetic, and confident. That's an important line, right? I will cultivate clarity and remain truthful to myself. One of the biggest problems we all have is that we so easily lie to ourselves, right? Even if it's just something simple. Oh, one piece of pizza won't cause any troubles. You can have one piece of chocolate. Nobody's looking. Um, I will make conscious, mature choices and hold myself to those choices. That's the most powerful line in this for me because I'm good at making mature choices, and mature is the key word here. In a moment of logic and rationale, that you say, clearly this is not the behavior I want, and then nobody's looking or you're around the corner. It's like, well, nobody will know if I get a burger. you know and so it's like no more. That was me just saying. That line just says, it starts with just no. I am going to hold myself to the mature choices I make, period. End of sentence, right? So that was a big one for me. And then I will become wholly responsible and in full control of my life from this day forward. That is an aspiration. To have full control of our life is something we shoot for. Do we ever? Maybe a Buddha does. I'd be happy at 70%, 80%. What percent you think you're at now? Maybe I'm a 50 or something, but it's just better. But it was supposed to be poetic. It was supposed to be motivating. So please excuse the absolute language. We usually don't use language like that. And anyways, that is my teaching on mental discipline. And I would encourage you guys to join with me and really put some effort in. Out of all the prayers I wrote, I think this prayer is the one that I think people could use the most. I have so many friends, and I say, man, just do me a favor, read this prayer every morning. And it's true, and the reason, because everyone seems to suffer from what this is talking about, right? I just see so many people suffering from this, especially the lack of confidence, authentic confidence, not bravado, but authentic confidence, a humble confidence. People lack it so much. We don't believe in ourselves. We have so much self doubt. We don't see our real value. Yeah. Any questions from the peanut gallery? So, if it's okay with you guys, I'm going to stop the recording. We'll keep them nice and short, and then we can do some talking, okay? All right.